the Leadership ITE 2022 Shark Tank presentations. Just a quick intro. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Keith Hall. I am the chair of Leadership ITE Steering Committee. We have with us today the participants of the 2022 program, as well as obviously our participants from the board, as well as those from the council leadership team. So thank you for taking the time out today. As everybody knows, for the Leadership ITE program, the project aspect is a critical component of our program, not only for the participants to practice their skill sets that they're learning as part of the program, but also to embark on a journey to move forward a project or initiative that's critical to ITE and our membership. And so to kick things off, we started a couple years ago a Shark Tank endeavor, which basically allows the participants to pitch their initial ideas to get some feedback. So you're not just sitting with us today quietly in the background. We do ask for you to be active participants with the class as they present their initial ideas. They do welcome feedback, questions, comments to make sure that they kind of guide their project appropriately. And more importantly, if there's something that you hear them talk about, a topic that's of passion to you, we do have mentors from the board, from headquarters, from the alumni as well. So that's an opportunity to further help guide those projects along. I still see a couple people joining in, so I just wanted to go over a few other items regarding the run of show today before we actually kick things off. We have 4 project teams, so what we're going to do is rotate each project team. They're going to have a maximum of 5 minutes to present their thinking for their projects. Immediately following each one, there will be a 10-minute comment Q&A period. We do ask for those in attendance, feel free to either use the raise the hand feature or let us know you want to unmute. We'd ask that you actually verbalize your comments. So we'll let you unmute yourself and verbalize your comment, question, address the team, and then you can go back on mute. We think that everybody's in a pretty good environment now that we can handle that. But feel free to kind of use those features to make sure that we navigate through everybody else appropriately. If anybody's having any issues, again, feel free to use the chat and we'll make sure you do get recognized. But everybody should have the feature to raise your hand. I just ask if you raise your hand for a comment, once you're done, please put it down. Otherwise, we'll call on you again to see if you have any other feedback, but we should be able to manage that end of things. Once we've rotated through all the teams actually will have some time following the presentations today, shortly after 4 p.m. Eastern, the top of the next hour, to debrief and digest some of the comments. They will be in breakout groups. So if you do have some extra time following the presentations and you want to hop in one or more of the groups, feel free to stay on with us. We could throw you in the breakout group with that team, and that way you can have a closer, more in-depth conversation with them and their project. So it's a little new opportunity that we have this year. So hopefully, if you do have a little bit of time on your schedule and you want to hop in some of the breakout groups or talk to one of the teams in general, you can do that at the end. But we do ask, for your initial comments and feedback for the larger group as well. So that's the general process that we will be running through today. Looks like everybody's on. So again, thank you all for joining us as part of this conversation and as part of kicking off the 2022 program with our class. We're really excited about the 4 teams and where they're going thus far with their projects. So without further ado, I'm going to move it to the first team. So the first team is Timo Supremo. It's a team of Fede, Christina, Nick, Joe, and Sonia. They'll have their videos on and they should be kind of pinned to the top of your screen so you can see who those individuals are. And Sonia is going to do the presentation. So Sonia, take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Keith. Hello, everyone. My name is Soumya Chandrasekhar, and I'm here today representing my group, Timo Supremo. On behalf of my team members, Christina, Fede, Joe, and Nick, I appreciate this opportunity to present a concept for our group's project. 2 of our group members have received our post-secondary education in universities outside of North America, and we recognize the void in a platform or venue that connects transportation professionals, which is very well filled in the US and Canada by ITE. So the 2021-2023 IT Strategic Plan's mission statement of providing the global community of transportation professionals with the knowledge, practices, skills, and connections really stuck to us. So our concept falls under the institutional sustainability pillar of the strategic plan, and we have tentatively titled it Global IT E-Community Expansion. So our concept, Global ITE Community Expansion, which we abbreviated to GITEE, is centered on Goal 5 statement of institutional sustainability, which is to have an expanding global presence. Our vision is obtained directly from one of the strategies of for Goal 5, which is encouraging and developing and maintaining relationships with global professional transportation societies, which we added through GITEE, having objectives and missions aligned with IT. So how do we achieve this vision? This can be achieved by providing a worldwide social media platform, which could be an expansion of IT member forum that is easily accessible in several languages with a mobile-friendly app that provides tools to enable transportation professionals to connect and collaborate with peers or existing societies. So here are some potential initial tasks and activities that we had discussed in our group. Some of it might seem a little bit ambitious, but we did think that this was achievable if we start with, say, a pilot region. One idea was to identify this pilot region through heat map of existing membership. This heat map could also be used in future to help members identify how many members are in the region that they can potentially connect to, as well as provide a baseline for IT to see how this concept has reaped benefits. And as engineers and planners, we do love our before and after studies. So this is kind of like perfect. So one important aspect to consider in this is the language barrier, as English is not the primary language in many regions. The global expansion is all about connectivity, which we consider would be best incorporated by, say, a brother-sister pairing between existing or new global chapters and a US section or chapter. And finally, it is important to recognize that the current membership might be a bit unaffordable in certain regions of the world. And so, or the professional might not be quite invested in the US-centric standards and manuals. We believe that investigation needs to be undertaken to understand the challenges that non-members face in other parts of the world. And so with that, we want to explore ways for these professionals to engage with the IT community, perhaps with a new membership structure of providing partial access to some membership benefits, such as, say, the traffic forum. So in summary, our goal through this project is to help IT build a global community by providing an accessible and convenient way for anyone to become a member of IT or gain access to information from IT. And with that, we are open to any suggestions, comments that you might have on this topic.
Perfect, thanks, Sonia. So now we turn it over to the Sharks. So those that are invited guests, feel free to formulate your thoughts, conversations, comments. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to use the raise the hand feature, and we'll kind of go through the order of those that want to provide some input on what you just heard from our first team, Timo Supremo. And we'd love to see your face, so feel free to turn your video on and unmute as we kind of go through it. So I'm looking to see if we can navigate the first group of comments here. I'm seeing some reactions initially come in, thumbs up, clap the hands. We'd love to hear your actual comments though. So Jeff, I see Jeff Pagnotti's got his hand up. So thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Keith, and good afternoon, everybody. Just a couple of comments, which I think, based on what I read, I think the group understands, but just want to be sure. First is that the e-community is a member-only benefit. It's behind our, paywall or our, entry wall. So, that is an important thing. And it is currently open to all members, US and international members. And we do have a number of international members that participate. So I assume your focus is on trying to look beyond existing ITE members and trying to find a way to bridge that. And so I think it will be interesting to follow your work and activity in the area. I did want you to know that our membership rates currently are scaled by country. So they're scaled based on UN sort of guidance. So there's not the international members in developing countries don't pay the same amount as North American members, for example. So you might want to take a look at our existing tiering as you get into your work, because it already exists. I didn't quite understand how you were going to come over the language barrier, so it wasn't clear to me. So maybe if you could provide some feedback on that, because for us, e-community is a pretty, it doesn't require a lot of staff support other than to follow them, make sure there's none sort of inappropriate engagement, but we aren't having to, to manage it and work with the actual posts on a day-to-day basis. So I'm trying to understand the language part of what your recommendation was. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your comments, Jeff. We really appreciate it. I would ask my group members to chime in too if they have any additional points. But one point that I did want to make in regards to the language barrier is we are anticipating that there are like a lot of softwares currently out there which provide easy translation, the simplest being Google Translate, which is just a little embed, which can be embedded on any actually page. And we think that there are other softwares out there too, which we can explore, potentially have partnership with, potentially have some sort of work with them in order to incorporate it in their app, so that when a user logs in, they can choose their primary language of communication, and all the pages that they see after that would be in that particular language. This might not be a very unusual concept, but we can explore it more and kind of like figure out what exactly the details and the specifics are for that. With that, does anybody else want to add any additional comment? I see Fedi's hand up.
Yeah, so I think that it's an excellent comment on how to overcome the language barrier. And besides just translating the app to multiple languages, doesn't need to cover every single language out there, but at least some of the most common ones. As we hopefully in the future, as more IT chapters or sections or districts start happening internationally, it could be the case that there will be some version of the e-community platform that provides a safe space for those who do not feel very comfortable reaching out in English, can communicate with others within their own region, within their own language, and kind of regionalize those discussions. So it's not just the way that the app will communicate, but it's also providing a space for users that are non-native English speakers or are not comfortable speaking in English to communicate to one another, should there be sufficient members who speak that specific language.
Great points. Mark Spencer from the Western District. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon. I had a similar question first to Jeff's. It looks like I guess it was unclear whether we're talking about providing the One ITE experience to existing members or reaching out and trying to grow the membership base across the globe. And so I think there just needs to be a distinction there. I think there was a need to serve existing members across the globe to bring them into the One ITE experience. One thing which I think could be of value for your group as you look around to other countries is to, you're talking about brother sister organizations. What is it that we provide that we would offer that they do not already receive from another organization? I think that's important to identify, because what are we offering? How would we attract them to ITE? What are they gaining from joining ITE versus their society that they have, whether it's in Japan or wherever it is that we don't have a big presence. I think if we understand that, we would have a better understanding of how to get that entree. Regarding the language barrier, I would be cautious. Google Translate is very good for most common speaking and written English. Technical terms are, as we all know, very different. And so we need to just be careful, because some things don't translate, from even in English, a car park versus a parking garage, something, but there are a lot of those examples across. But I'm looking forward to seeing what you all do, and good luck with it. This is very cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Alyssa, is your hand up?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. There was a leadership ITE group that took on the global district a couple years ago. So I just want to make sure that you look back, I think it was around the 2019 timeframe, and look at the work that they did, just so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've also established some partnerships already with some other organizations like in England and Korea. And I think you'll have an opportunity to have some frank conversations with volunteers and staff about the varying levels of success there. And then one thing I wanted to encourage you to do is we have a lot of global membership at the student level. And I like the idea in your presentation about the brother-sister mentorship type pairing. I think there's a good opportunity there to pair some of those student chapters with successful student chapters here in the States and Canada, so that they have that, they build that relationship.
That's a great idea. We'll definitely look into that for sure.
Andrew, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was seeing in the earlier slides how you were suggesting the development of a mobile-friendly app. Could you elaborate on what you're conceiving for that? Because that could be a fairly significant effort from a technological perspective. And even if you're pilot, I mean, are you thinking of developing some sort of, UI, UX interface as part of your pilot, to help demonstrate what that app would look like? So if you could elaborate on that a little bit more, that'd be great.
Thank you for the question, Andrew. So actually, the pilot that we are talking about in our slide was actually identifying a pilot region, because we recognize that different regions are different, like, across the globe. For instance, what might work in South America would not necessarily work in Asia. So, so in order to identify a region where we can cater our suggestions and thoughts to that region specifically is where we were going. But the app was a different aspect of our concept. Through the app, we were thinking, okay, this I like give a very quick brief on how it kind of came up is when we are going through this leadership IT, this whole class, we have to provide responses and everything. And for everything, we have to access the desktop application, which actually is a little bit of a, I would say, a hurdle, not really a hurdle per se that I cannot overcome, but it's just one additional step. Whereas we are also used to a handheld device that we can easily pick it up, go to the app. Oh, I got a message from Christina on the Leadership IT app. Let me respond it right away, rather than waiting at the end of the day, getting logging in onto the desktop and responding back. So
Fine.
the ease of which we are with this app, we are actually providing the convenience of accessing our platform. That's what we are doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Timo Supremo. So thank you for all the comments. As you can see, the Sharks came to, really provide you some good insight and direction and thoughtful consideration. If any of those in attendance want to chat a bit further, again, feel free to just mark down that was Timo Supremo, and let us know at the end. We'll make sure to put you in touch with them at their breakout group so you could provide some kind of further comments or have a little bit more discussion. So thank you, Timo Supremo. We will now move on to our next team, which is LITE Waves, as in LITE Waves. Team of Farhad, Bahman, Victoria, Tom, and Bethany. Tom will be giving his pitch today. So Tom, feel free to share your screen and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. All right, you guys can see my screen? Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to ITE leadership. Thank you to the ITE Board of International Directors. Thank you for the council leaders, obviously the leadership ITE team, and to all my leadership ITE colleagues. Thank you all for coming. My name is Tom Pagano. I am representing Team LITE Waves. That is Victoria, Bethany, Farhad, and Bahman. Okay, so our proposal. Let's see here, hang on. what we saw an opportunity with student engagement. Student engagement is an ever-evolving, very crucial thing to ITE and to our field in general. And we think it's a great opportunity for us to improve. We saw two specific ways we could improve. One is with local events. ITE chapters, sections, and districts are often struggling to host meaningful events with good student turnout, encouraging students to attend. And then the second piece is the big broad events. We've got the traffic bowl, but we can do even more beyond that. So the first part of our proposal is a student engagement review, basically looking into what ITE is doing internationally in terms of student engagement events, what's been tried, what works, what doesn't work. We're looking for a comprehensive inventory, whether it be a passive type survey or a very active reach out. We're looking to leverage ITE's contacts and our own networks contacts to really to workshop with and contact with real people and really get real feedback from the people who would actually participate in these events, whether they'd be excited to be in them, whether what challenge they might see. And then synthesizing all of this, we think if we've got a good feel of what ITE is doing across the world, then we could synthesize that into a new marquee event that could be implemented across ITE. That marquee student competition, we think that must incorporate key transportation concepts, basically be related to our field. We want it to be hands-on and interactive. We don't want it to be a report, another, faceless submission. We want it to be something in person, hands-on, something that gets people engaged and excited. And then another thing we want it to be is something that could be replicated at any level of an IT. So what we mean by that is something that it's not resource heavy. Maybe you need a big space, but beyond that, it's not very expensive. It doesn't have huge technical requirements. So it could be a marquee competition that has an IT international level attendance, or it's something that maybe somebody like a district could copy, or even a local section looking for that. So once we develop our ideas, we want to take it back to the contacts we've developed and honed through our research step and workshop them with the current students. Again, what do you think of this? Does this get you excited? Would you want to commit to this? Do you see any problems that might stop you from committing to this? And then if we pass all these hurdles and get some really great ideas, we could work on a pilot to engage that. If we, a lot of us know student chapters who might be really eager to try something like this, and then we can collaborate on and bring it forward to an actual event, and then we can report back on what we see. So what we would end up delivering to the IT community is first, a database research of student engagement events. All that research we did at the beginning, we would compile it together into a searchable research, whether it's a table or a database, something that categorizes big and small events for IT and internationally, what works, what doesn't work. A student chapter in New York can look and see what the chapters in California have been doing. A student chapter in Europe could see what they're doing in Australia, things like that. Deliverable number 2 would be a recipe book for 1 to 3 maybe marquee events, depending on whether we really like one, or we've got a good ideas for a couple 3. And then deliverable number 3 is a potential pilot competition to see how that works and report back on it. So with that, that's our idea. We're really looking forward to your feedback to sort of hone this to be exactly what IT needs and really be helpful to all of us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Team LightWaves. Shark, you're back in the tank, so feel free to turn your videos on, raise your hands, let us know some feedback for Team LightWaves on their student engagement concept, understanding, student engagement happens to be a popular subject amongst leadership ITE. So Jeff Rigner, I see you're first up, so go ahead.
Couldn't agree more that this is one of the most important things that we can do. So thank you for really focusing on student engagement. Have you looked at all at the sandbox competition that has gone on for the last 2 annual meetings. One side is for student groups and the other's for professionals, and how that might fit into this framework?
Sure. So, and I think Victoria can jump in a little bit more on this. She's a bit more familiar than I am. We think it's great. I think that's awesome. That one is a cool bridge between students and employees. What we're thinking about is geared specifically to students, but I don't know if Victoria has anything to add on that.
Yeah, I will just add, we have talked about where this would potentially overlap with the sandbox competition. And I think based on my own participation in the sandbox competition as a professional, there is a potential gap for a competition that doesn't necessarily require the extensive research that the sandbox competition calls for. We are interested in creating something that does require some advanced preparation, but not to the extent that the sandbox competition currently does.
Perfect. Thanks for the feedback. Mark Spencer, you're up again. Mark, you're muted.
Mark, you're on mute.
Everyone's dream. Sorry about that. In the Western District, we have at our annual meeting, we have something called the KEL competition, which is like a half-day student competition where we actually mix and match the student teams. So students from different universities have to work with one another and get to know one another. We also have, over the course of the year, we do trip generation or data collection projects where they will earn money and get ranked as it's a way to generate data for the trip generation manual, but also it's a student competition of sorts. The sandbox competition, I think, was an excellent example. I think other districts also have similar programs. So there's a number of things out there that are done. Also during student leadership summits, there's also competition, sometimes ranging from an hour and a half to a day and a half, depending on the organizers and what they're setting up. So there's a lot of good examples already throughout the Institute to kind of take a look at and then figure out what gaps are missing.
That's great. Thank you. That's exactly what we want to look into.
Thanks, Mark. Jeff Young, your input?
Yeah, thanks. A little bit more, Jeff Young with the Great Lakes District. To piggyback on what Mark, there are many sections and districts that are doing some things that are unique, but then there is also the commonality. Obviously, the traffic bowl is probably the biggest thing that IT is doing now. So with that, I think not only looking at what is being done or what could be done, are there things that are being done now that could be refined? So taking the traffic bowl as an example, is there anything wrong with it? If so, what needs to be changed? I think in all this, though, if you take a step back and you have to ask yourself, what defines success? Is it getting a chapter at every university, 3 in each state? You might have a chapter, but are you actually engaging? So, that's the other thing you want to think about is what will define a successful student engagement, whether it's a fun competition, or is it something that's more geared towards the students' professional development, such as like a career fair type event. So I mean, you might have like 2 tracks, one that's fun, and then others that are more geared for where they, help them advance their career.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Last but not least, Beverly, current internet.
Sorry, Keith, can I just jump in here for a second to
Go ahead,
respond to Jeff? I want to make this clear. We do not want to detract from the traffic bowl. The traffic bowl is very successful. I'm a huge supporter of the traffic bowl. I run the traffic bowl for the Mountain District, so I definitely don't want to take away from it. However, at least based on my own experience in the Mountain District, I've heard direct feedback from students that they want something more hands-on. And I'm going to say those 2 dreaded words: concrete canoe, steel bridge. They want something more interactive like that isn't just a knowledge-based competition. And that's kind of where we're hopefully going to be able to steer this. based on competitions that we know already exist in other districts. So.
Go ahead, Beverly.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to sit in on this. I do have to dive off a little early, so I apologize in advance if I have to miss the last one. Kind of a follow on to what Jeff was saying, and I'm not really gonna, what I'd like to encourage you to do is to kind of, Jeff was talking about what's the end game, kind of what are you trying to accomplish, whatever you think your end goal is. Think about what we've set forth in the student to younger member transition initiative, because I think that's part of what we're trying to do. And I kind of falls along with what Victoria is saying, is something that gives them hands-on experience that makes them excited about going and being a transportation professional. So, and I'm not necessarily saying that counting cars on the side of the road is an exciting job. So, having done that, but anyway, just look at that and kind of keep that in mind as you're thinking about what potential things are. What do you think is going to help those students get excited and stick with us after they graduate? So that's all. Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That's definitely another thing that we've been thinking about. Now that we said some of those words, having that marquee competition is a marketing effect, and that's exactly what we're trying. One of the big goals we have. So thank you.
Thanks, Beverly. And final comment for this group, we have Rosanna, an International Vice President.
I'm muted. So
There you
I like
go.
the idea to I like following Beverly and suggestion about what is your end goal and everything. Like, we are like a community of transportation professional, right? So what other events can we do that we can incorporate some of our planners, students that are part of the student chapter? So just want to throw out there. I think we have one student chapter in North Carolina that is just planners for the planning school. So just like how can we collaborate and kind of do something that involve others to grow our community of transportation professionals.
Cool. Thank you. Yes.
Great input there. So just real quick, there's a couple of comments in the chat. Again, Jeff noted about some of the current competitions that we've talked about, but also, again, opportunity for the team to focus a little bit more on competitions that may be a little easier achieved at the district or section level. So there may be some opportunity there. So something you may want to take back as well. So, but having that playbook, that recipe book that you had mentioned, I think is a great opportunity. So thank you, Team Lightwaves. Again, if anybody's interested with follow-up with Team Lightwaves on student engagement, please hang around as we conclude today. We can make sure that you get connected with that group. Thank you, Tom, and everybody for that presentation. So we will move to the next team. The next team is Team Richie Bunch with Jill, Shilpa, Rob, Leah, and Nathan. And Shilpa will be doing the presentation today on their pitch. So Shilpa, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Keith. And I think I can share my screen. Can you see my screen? Great. Well, welcome everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the presentation by the Bridgie Bunch. As Keith mentioned, I'm Shilpa Mallam and I'm representing my team that includes Jill, Leah, Nathan, and Rob. So what you see here is the theme of our team project. We haven't finalized the actual title yet, but we decided on the topic of broadening the community of transportation professionals. So what do we mean by this and what made us pick this topic? So as you can see here, I think all of us at IT, this is how we'd like to see IT. This is how we think IT is. Like, to come up with a comprehensive transportation solution, it needs to include elements of traffic engineering, planning, policy, highways design, smart cities, complete streets, and this is not an exhaustive list either. And we do have councils and committees that deal with all aspects that we see over here. However, in speaking with our team members and also our colleagues, and when we talk to them about joining IT or coming to IT meetings, what we realize that the way they see ITE is like this. They think we're heavily skewed in our topics towards traffic engineering, and so that kind of creates a hurdle for other people in the transportation industry to be more active in our organization. So that's why we picked the topic, to see how we can change the perspective and how we can increase the visibility of the other councils and other activities that we do in this area. And while talking about this, we also realized that it's right in line with IT strategic plan, goal number 1, which was to quote, to be the preferred choice for members from all disciplines and at all stages of their careers. So we plan to spend our time with the councils and in IT to see what the hurdles are, what's stopping people from being more active, what are the gaps, and how can we bridge the gaps. And we identified maybe a few possible outcomes to see maybe it takes the form of some guidance documents for district section leadership, chapter leadership, technical councils, and maybe student chapters take a look at our topics. We also noticed that we have a lot more traffic related topics in our either monthly meetings or the annual meeting compared to other areas. So maybe that's something where we can encourage our IT members and our colleagues in the industry to get more participation. So we are seen as a more inclusive organization. It might seem broad in the beginning, but we plan to start with the committees areas that already have councils in these areas and figure out ideas to increase their visibility. And with that, we also talked about one additional thing that Nathan wanted to chime in on. Nathan, you want to?
Yeah, I'm here if everyone can hear me. I'm Nathan from Arkansas. We were thinking of ways to actually have a goal and a target and an idea. And one that really kept coming to mind was, I think we're going to tackle the name change finally and go from Institute of Traffic Engineers, Transportation Engineers. I think we're going to be the Institute of Transportation Everyone's. I think we can all agree that that's a wonderful name for us to pursue. And I think that's what the Bridgie Bunch is really going to go after. Not really. We have some wonderful ideas and some wonderful professional ideas to go after, but we just wanted to throw that in to finish up our presentation.
Yeah, we realize it's not an actual word yet, but Google wasn't a verb until a few years ago. So anyway, so with that, we're looking forward to your suggestions, comments, any kind of support we can get from the Sharks. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Bridgie Bunch. Excited to hear some feedback. Scott, I see you're up first.
Hey all, great presentation. Do want to point out as part of your work in your research, I like where you're going with it. There was a group last class, I think, that focused a little bit more, is a little bit tangential to what you're looking at. But I think they're focused a little bit more on kind of retention and, maybe folks that left the profession, but I think they kind of dove into a little bit folks, just kind of the, you used to kind of mention smart cities or industry or things like that. I think it would be worthwhile just to take a few minutes to, at a minimum, get a hold of their presentation or maybe even have a meeting with that. And I'd be glad to help get you engaged with that group. So just otherwise excited where you're going with this.
Great, thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott, for that feedback. All right, who else has some comments for a team that's looking to change ITE's name? All right, Jeff, you're up. Jeff Pagnotti.
Thanks, Keith. So just to be aware, we have an effort which we're just embarking on that kind of falls under the same umbrella, where we're focused on bringing more transportation planners into ITE. So a specific target audience to broaden the community. I think your, kind of what you identified up front is a real barrier. The perception of who ITE is and what our agenda is differs from the perception and reality don't match. And so people that are not familiar with ITE do see us as sign signals and markings, where if you look at our annual meeting agendas, they're actually very much broader than that. So I think it's very timely, but I would encourage you to think about, I think it's as much a communication and marketing issue as it is to develop a new agenda issue. And so I would just encourage you to kind of think about it from that perspective, and maybe think about it as we're engaging with this community of transportation planners that are not IT members. How do we get them to recognize what ITE is today versus what they think it is? Thanks.
Great point, Jeff. Thank you.
Rosanna, I see you have a comment.
I was gonna mention, I mean, on the same life that Jeff was saying, like, we have a effort right now to engage transportation planners that are members and non-member from of IT, and just expand our community of transportation professionals. So we're just initiating that effort, but one of the feedback that we have heard, I mean, similar to Jeff was saying, and what you say initially, is like the perception, you know, so maybe it's like a branding kind of thing, or like how we market, or, you know, the organization, or, you know, how can we change that perception? So because we have councils and committee meetings that address a lot of, you know, other things that is not just signal timing. So yeah, I was gonna say that's more of the same thing that Jeff was saying. Yeah.
Great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great comment in terms of, you know, differentiating how it's branded and perceived out in the industry, and making sure that that statement kind of matches, that value statement matches actually what we're, you know, we as an institute represent. So it's a really good point. Any other comments for the Bridgie Group team?
I was going to say, maybe we do have that initiative, like Jeff and Rosanna said. We'll make sure we'll try to figure out a way to meet with them to coordinate what we come up with to be in line.
Correct. Yeah, and as Scott mentioned, there's some recent efforts with some of the leadership classes, as well as some past efforts that did look at kind of that branding piece, as well as kind of reaching out to the other sectors of the transportation industry that we don't historically think of as, you know, ITE membership in terms of a broad cross section. So I think both of those would serve pretty well in terms of guiding, you know, your team's project.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for the feedback. On to our final team. So our final team is the Standard Deviators. It's a team of Fabio, Dan, Anmol, Rachel, and Beth. Anmol and Beth will be presenting. So take it away, Standard Deviators.
All right, can you guys see my screen now? Perfect. All right. Hi, Sharks. I'm Anmol Srivastava from Team Standard Deviators, and we are very excited to present our idea, Beyond the E, to all of you today. Our idea incorporates and is a combination of the previous two ideas. Sharks. This is how the world could look like if there were just transportation engineers in the world. I'm obviously joking, but it is scary, right? Can we avoid this from happening in ITE? Imagine if ITE had a variety of planners, data scientists, industrial engineers, in addition to the transportation engineers as professional members. That would be amazing, right? Not only would it enhance the knowledge sharing process through increased diversity of thought, but also improve and encourage the collaboration needed in the future in the field of transportation. A beautiful and much different world than this slide shows, right? How can this be done, you ask? Our idea is to create an engagement plan or toolkit for student chapters focusing on undergraduates, appealing to students across a number of fields of study, including but not limited to computer science, data science, planning, logistics, political science, pre-law, and other traditional engineering majors. Essentially, this toolkit is intended to be an all-encompassing playbook for student chapter engagement for undergraduates. It will be applicable and useful for current students, faculty, or student chapter liaisons in the industry. We are calling this, yes, you guessed it right, Beyond the E. We believe starting early engagement of students in various fields with ITE would help sow the seed, which grows into a magnificent tree as they graduate college and become professional ITE members?
You will find our idea, Beyond the E, is consistent with one of ITE's major emphasis areas for 2022, supporting students and younger members through student engagement. With the tools we propose, it will be easier than ever for students, both engineering and non-engineering, to learn about the transportation profession, and it'll be more accessible too. Let me take a minute to break down some basic and not at all surprising statistics about the ITE student chapter at the University of Florida. The chapter consists of 97 students, pretty impressive. 24 of those are undergraduates, and 100% of that population is civil engineering students. 73 are graduate students, with 67 in transportation. Again, not surprising. The remaining 6 are involved in some of the diverse student interest groups that we hope to engage through Beyond the E. Our project will support ITE's goal of increasing student involvement, as well as gaining more thought diversity. So let's jump in. A key element of our program is anticipated to be the engagement plan. This plan would include an event and activity guide and ideas for programs that may include career fair engagement, professional member interviews, and types of professionals to seek as guest speakers. More on this to come. In addition, we may include ideas for collaboration with other organizations or competition materials that just might be prepared by some of our classmates in this session. We propose also including a multimedia component, including YouTube and social media videos and quick bites to engage students. With this multimedia element, we plan to set the framework and guidelines that chapters could use to engage and build on in the future. We further plan to prepare guidance for reaching out to local representatives and volunteers. While this won't include a list of names for each chapter, it should include places to look for experts and impassioned professionals. Think planning commissioners, advocacy groups, walk and bike advocates, transit agencies, etc. And finally, we propose to populate topics that would seek to engage students and professionals beyond the E. Think smart city programs and bike lane studies to interest planners, Vision Zero, urban policy, and discussions on the legal impacts of transportation decisions to attract law and poli-sci majors. Pull in logistics with last mile freight seminars to appeal, pull in logistics with last mile freight seminars and appeal to mechanical engineers and data scientists with programs about rideshare and autonomous and connected vehicles. We work with all of these types of professionals throughout our careers. Let's gain their interest and attention as students.
This aligns well with IT's current strategic student to younger member implementation plan. This toolkit is intended to be one of the recommended practices, resources available for the student chapters and chapter liaisons. We firmly believe this will aid in that important take action and build forward process as part of IT's strategic plan. So Sharks, who is excited to change the world one student major at a time? Sharks, come join Team Standard Deviators in creating a world beyond the E. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to take any questions now.
Thank you, Standard Deviators. And let's see who wants to help Standard Deviators and help students see beyond the E. So first, I'm going to go to Andrew.
All right. Very well done. I like the topic on student to younger member transition. Seeing as I co-chair that action plan development, but one of the items in that action plan is exactly what you talked about. It's developing the best practices for student chapters. So I really like where you're headed, and I think there's a lot of synergy that can be gained from your work to incorporate that into the best practices. You know, we could really use that information and build upon what we're gathering from the other districts. Because part of what we're planning to do with IT International is capture what the other districts and what the sections are doing and the chapters are doing, but as well as the student chapters. What are those best practices for student chapters? So I really like where you're headed, and I'd like to work with you guys specifically because I think it really does tie into the action plan for this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other feedback for Standard Deviators? Jeff, yeah?
Yeah, hi. With the students, it kind of goes to the other group also, is to engage the educators at the university level as well, because they are sometimes the linchpin and what makes a successful student chapter. So obviously that's, engaging students. They don't have to necessarily be involved with student chapter, but maybe consider coordinating with the education council to find out what are some good opportunities. They might have some suggestions, being right there on a daily basis with their students, to get their feedback as well, a suggestion.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Alyssa, you have a comment you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think this is a great topic, and I think it fits with our diversity and inclusion efforts within the organization. Certainly recognizing that if we're going to grow the organization from the ground up, that getting more people involved at the student level is great. I would encourage you, however, to avoid the stereotype that engineers are only interested in designing for cars. I know that's still out there floating, but there's plenty of us out there that are interested in designing for all users. And I think that's where, and certainly learning about how they can do that type of job even better. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for collaboration there. So thank you.
Noted, Alyssa. I do, we knew that image of Paris, it was absolutely a joke. We thought it told the story.
Great input there. Other comments for standard deviators on Beyond E? And I think, again, there's, as mentioned, that we're early in the projects, but I think there's some synergies between some of the topics that were discussed, and as the teams kind of further refine them, obviously want to make sure that there's no overlaps, but I think there will be some synergies between what you're doing and what, for example, Lightwaves is thinking of doing. So as the groups kind of refine more and hear more comments today, I think it's helpful to focus in a little bit more on exactly where you're going to take your projects. Jeff Paniotti threw a quick comment in that just noted the timely fit with the student to young member initiative that's going on. So I think that's a critical piece as well. I know it was mentioned previously. So other comments for our final team today? Andrew, I see you're back.
Yeah, I mean, just like what you were mentioning, Keith, about the overlap, because I do see how these can be mutually exclusive if, this last team just focuses on the student chapter component, while, Lightwaves focus on the, district sections and chapters. And then kind of de-emphasizing from this last presentation, the need to have those competitions if that can be the focus of the other group. But more about best practices for the standard deviators. So I think there's ways you can create that exclusivity between the two different groups.
Any final thoughts before we round out the presentations? All right. Seeing none, I just want to again thank everybody for joining us today. Thank our teams for presenting. Again, this is just the start of the Leadership ITE program for the 2022 class. Again, they're kind of just finding their way with the project, so the insights today are definitely valuable. Hopefully, those who had some comments or maybe want to talk a bit further with any of the teams today, feel free to hang on for a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to put the teams into breakout groups, and then if you have a few minutes, feel free to stay on and just let us know if you want to, for example, speak to the standard deviators, and we could put you in their team and you could talk directly with them on conversation, via Zoom today rather than following up via email. I know we're all in a virtual world nowadays, so it's way easier to handle it this way. So feel free, if all the teams which want to come back on their video. This kind of concludes the presentations. Again, thank you everybody for this effort. We've really emphasized with the teams this year to connect their projects with ITE strategic plan. And I think they've already started to make some good alignment with that, but they're always looking for guidance. And more importantly, this is an opportunity to develop those connections for the mentors for these teams. As you all are aware, we have mentors for the team from the international board. We have mentors from headquarters staff, as well as mentors from the alumni community. So again, really good opportunities to kind of talk with the teams a bit further and hopefully align some ideas and thoughts with them. We really appreciate everybody's time. We know this is a valuable piece, and hopefully, we'll see you all back virtually as part of the teams for their final presentations in a few months, and you'll see, really where this journey has taken them. But this initial guidance that we get is really, really important. So again, if you have, a bit extra time today, feel free to stay on and let us know which teams you'd like to talk to a bit more, and we'll enter in those breakout groups. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll send everybody back off to their breakout groups.